Tignan po ninyo itong litrato ng Earth. Galing po sa NASA yan eh. Yung makikita po ninyo yung orange at saka red na bahagi, yan po yung mainit na tubig dyan po sa dagat Pasipiko. Binabantayan po yan ng mga scientists. Itong lumalaking parte ng tinatawag nilang warm water mass malapit po dito sa may US at sa Central America. Ecuador ba yan? Panama, ano? Ito yung mga unang senyales po ng El Niño. Yan. Sa normal na weather pattern, ano yung walang yung regular na naranasan natin. Itong tinatawag na warm water mass, itinutulak po yan ng hangin papunta po dito sa west, kanluran, ano? Malapit po sa Asia, sa Indonesia, sa Australia at sa Pilipinas. At doon naman po sa bandang US, sa Central America, yung tinatawag po nilang cool water mass. So dito po sa litratong inyong nakikita, hindi ho dapat nandyan itong orange at saka red na bahagi ng Pacific Ocean. Base po sa satellite images na inilabas po ng NASA, makikita ang mga kondisyon na nagbabadya na po yung pagdating ng tinatawag nilang Super El Nino ngayong 2026. Gaya ng nasabi ko kanina, hindi normal ang weather pattern ngayon at papasok sa El Nino na maaaring magbago po sa panahon, di lang po sa Asia, kundi sa buong planeta po natin. Sa kasaysayan po, iniuugnay po ang El Nino sa mga malawakang pagbaha, dulot po ng mabibigat na pag-ulan. Tag-tuyot naman po dun sa mga lugar na umiinit, walang ulan, natutuyo po ang lupa. Nagkakaroon din po ng mga wildfires. At dahil po dyan sa tag-tuyot at wildfires at sobrang tubig naman kung binabaha, nagkakaroon po ng crop failure. So yung mga agriculture po natin, bumabagsak. Nakita po yan noong El Nino 1990s, ano? Libu-libo po ang nasawi dahil po sa pagbaha, wildfire, tag-tuyot at taggutom. May balik tayo dito sa picture. Nakikita na ang pamumuo ng malaking warm water mass dito sa dagat Pasipiko. Sabi ng mga scientists, may indikasyon na magiging pinakamalawak ang El Nino ngayong taon sa kasaysayan po. Ito, meron po tayong nakakalap na ilang video informasyon tungkol po sa El Nino, ano? Paano po ito nabubuo at gaano ang epekto po nito ngayong 2026. Tignan po natin.
What is El Nino? But what exactly is El Nino? And what does it have to do with our weather? El Nino is a powerful weather pattern that occurs in the Pacific Ocean, but it can affect weather around the world. Under normal conditions, strong winds along the equator push warm water at the surface of the ocean from South America west toward Indonesia. But in an El Nino year, things are different. In fall and winter of an El Nino year, the winds at the equator grow much weaker than usual. This causes warm water to shift back toward the coast of South America. When that happens, it can really shake things up. That's because El Nino doesn't just stay in the ocean. It changes the weather, too. Because of El Nino, some places in the United States and Central and South America get way more rain than usual. Very heavy rains and storms can sometimes lead to flooding in these regions. At the same time, other places can get less rain than usual and experience droughts. Wildlife can be affected by El Nino too. For example, fish that usually live in cooler waters might swim away to new areas because of the warmer ocean temperatures.
In March of this year, forecasters gave a 22% chance of happening, a real possibility, but nothing alarming. Then April came, and that number jumped to 80%. And then, the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts released its May update. The number that came back stopped people in their tracks. 100%. A 100% probability of a super El Nino forming by November. And the projected peak temperature of the ocean at the center of all this? 3 degrees Celsius above average. A level of heat in the Pacific that hasn't been recorded since 1877, almost 150 years ago. The forecasts are not just pointing in the same direction, they are converging, faster than the models can keep up with. And what they're converging on is something that will touch almost every region on Earth. Before we talk about what a super El Nino does, it's important to understand what El Nino actually is, because most people have heard the name without fully understanding the mechanism. Under normal conditions in the tropical Pacific, trade winds blow from east to west, pushing warm surface water toward Asia and Australia, and allowing cold, nutrient-rich water to rise up along the South American coast. That's the baseline state of the Pacific: warm water in the west, cooler water in the east. El Nino happens when those trade winds weaken. The warm water that was being pushed westward sloshes back toward the center and east of the Pacific. Sea surface temperatures rise significantly in the central and eastern tropical Pacific. And because the ocean and atmosphere are constantly exchanging heat and moisture, that shift in ocean temperature doesn't stay in the Pacific. It reorganizes weather patterns across the entire globe, changing where it rains, where it droughts, where it floods, where it burns, and ultimately pushing global average temperatures upward as the ocean releases stored heat back into the atmosphere. El Nino events happen naturally, roughly every 2 to 7 years. A weak one barely registers outside the tropics. A moderate one shifts rainfall patterns across multiple continents. A strong one reshapes the weather for an entire year or more. And a super El Nino is in a different category entirely. At that threshold, the sheer volume of heat transferred from the ocean to atmosphere is sufficient to physically displace the jet streams of both hemispheres, generating simultaneous droughts, floods, wildfires, and heat waves across countries thousands of kilometers from the Pacific. This is the part that actually matters for most people watching this, because a super El Nino doesn't feel the same everywhere. Depending on where you live, it either brings too much water or not nearly enough, and understanding which side of that you're on is the key. Start with Asia. For India, Indonesia, the Philippines, and parts of Australia, a super El Nino typically means one thing: drought. The monsoon weakens. The rain that billions of people depend on for their crops and their water supply arrive late or don't arrive at all. The 2015 to 2016 Super El Nino contributed to one of India's worst agricultural droughts in decades. If 2026 matches or exceeds that intensity, the same regions face the same risk, except with larger populations and food systems already under stress from years of extreme weather. East Africa gets the opposite. Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia. These regions typically see above average rainfall during El Nino, which sounds like good news until you see what that actually looks like on the ground. The 2023 to 2024 El Nino, which wasn't even a super event, caused devastating floods across the region that displaced hundreds of thousands of people. In South America, the Amazon basin faces drought and heat, dangerous in a rainforest that is already under enormous pressure from deforestation. Around 40% of the Amazon is already affected by some form of forest degradation. A strong El Nino on top of that raises wildfire risk to levels that could rival the catastrophic 2019 and 2023 fire seasons. Meanwhile, Argentina, Uruguay, and southern Brazil tend to see the opposite: wetter conditions, above average rainfall, increased flooding risk in low-lying areas. For North America, the effects depend heavily on where you are. The southern United States typically sees wetter, milder winters. The Pacific Northwest faces reduced snowpack and expanded wildfire seasons come summer. The Midwest generally gets a warmer than average winter, by around 3 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. And across Europe, the latest forecast is already showing above normal temperatures, expected across nearly the entire continent throughout the summer months, with the strongest signal over southern Europe and the Mediterranean. So where does all this leave us? Every major institution agrees that El Niño is coming, that it's heading towards strong or super strength, and that it's arriving on the warmest baseline in recorded history. What that means practically is straightforward. The regions most vulnerable to El Niño, South Asian farming communities, East African populations in flood-prone areas, Amazon ecosystems already under pressure, Pacific coastlines in the path of intensifying storms, have strong scientific reason to be preparing right now, rather than waiting for certainty that may only arrive once the event is already underway. Seasonal forecasting exists precisely to create that window of preparation, and right now, that window is open. This isn't about fear, it's about information. The planet has been through Super El Niños before and come out the other side, but the ones that caused the least damage were the ones where communities, governments, and farmers knew what was coming and had time to act. The forecasts this week are giving us that time. The question is, what do we do with it?
Hindi ho biro itong El Niño, no? Maganda pong maintindihan po natin yan, paano nabubuo, at makapaghanda po tayo kung paano tayo mag-a-adjust pagdating po ng El Niño. Anong sinasabi po natin? Daig ng maagap ang masipag. Diba? So mabuti na pong agapan po natin ng paghahanda upang hindi ho tayo mabigla sakaling maramdaman po natin sa ating bansa ang epekto po ng El Niño. Iba-iba po yan. No? May mga lugar po na sobrang bigat po ng ulan. May mga lugar naman po na talagang walang ulan na darating at magdudulot po ng tag-tuyot. At dahil po pag may tag-tuyot, wala pong maaani at nagkakaroon po ng kagutuman. Yung ibang lugar po sa sobrang init, nagkakaroon po ng bushfire o wildfire, gaya ng 1990s, yung Indonesia. Ay mabigat naman po yung apoy naman po ang kakalabanin po dyan. So paghandaan po natin ito, hindi ho biro yan.